with another episode of The Spine Bookcast. Today we are doing it live from AuthorCon here in Smyrna, Tennessee, where we have the lovely Reagan Clare and the very, very handsome Dan Clefstead with us today. And we are also, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We are also recording live on YouTube and TikTok. So please, if you want to go to those and ask questions, we have somebody monitoring those. So I'm Lindsay, your host, and Reagan, let's start with you. How did you get into reading?
How did I get into reading?
Yes.
I was an only child, and a weird one. So I read because, well, friends are hard, and so are people. Books are easy. They're always there. They're always with you. They take you to places that you can't even, you would never otherwise be able to see or experience or visit or anything like that. So I started reading because of that.
Okay. Dan, what about you?
Well, my mother read to me. The early ones were the early ones were Frog and Toad and Hop on Pop and all those. The Lorax too. So that's how I got into reading early on, and then later as I started choosing my own books to read. A lot of them were spy novels, interestingly enough.
Okay.
So, there was James Bond, but also later on John le Carré. And then when I got to college, it was all about existential, philosophy or, Albert Camus remains a favorite author of mine.
Okay. So to get more into both of you guys, let's talk about what we do. So Reagan is a writer, and Dan is a writer, but he also teaches people how to market their books as well. So you talked yesterday about some of that. So Reagan, let's talk about some of the books that you write.
Okay.
And then we will talk about what you write and then also what you're showing people how to do. Reagan, talk to me about some of your books.
Okay. So I have a completed coming-of-age fantasy series out that it's been out for quite a while. It was my first published work, my first finished project out of the very many that I started through the years. I also have a coming-of-age contemporary romance that's kind of a now and then, second chance, summer love situation. It's my only book, my only story that's not fantasy. Recently, I started writing an urban fantasy series where my main character is Aphrodite, but she doesn't quite remember that aspect of herself.
Sure.
So it's all about her experiencing the world with these powers she doesn't know how to explain, surrounded by this pantheon of gods that she doesn't quite understand who, what, or how they exist too. So.
Okay. Now, how did you come up with that idea for taking the gods and having one of them not really know? And like how did you come up with that story idea?
So, my main character is Aphrodite, and the idea of her, I've always loved mythology, like Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology. Like, I've just always really been drawn to it. And Aphrodite in particular has always been a very intriguing character to me because she was, depending on who's telling the story, she was always sometimes very critiqued, like very, oh, just the goddess of love. Oh,
Sure.
She's so wanton. She's so like this terrible person. But she also has aspects where she was worshipped as a sea goddess.
Okay.
She was also worshipped as a goddess of war.
I didn't know that.
She is the only woman who was able to refuse Zeus's advances. So she was massively powerful in her own right. She was also this goddess who had an arranged marriage when she, first came about, and how to a man that she had no love for, and then the person that she did love, she was mocked and ridiculed for having an affair with somebody that she loved.
Okay.
And so I always found that as a woman is such a telling story.
Sure.
And then I had this idea of what if the gods and goddesses all kind of not only influenced that which they were patrons of, but also fed on that. So in my story, she actually feeds on affection and on love. And so she can have little nibbles of attraction, give her like little snacks, but
Sure.
she really is nourished by true love.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Now, Dan, you on the other hand are not writing about gods, you're writing about vampires.
Indeed.
So talk to me about your vampire book.
Well, actually, I always like to say it's a story about humans who work for a beautiful, powerful vampire named Fiona. And Fiona needs 250, she needs 10 pints of blood every night, human blood, to survive. And she prefers O negative. So the people who supply this blood for her have a bit of a challenge sometimes.
Okay.
And she's 250 years old. She's had humans working for her for about 100 years. And her most recent guardian, Daniel, has been working for her for 35 years and is thinking about retiring.
Okay.
Is there any reason the main character's name is Daniel, Dan?
It's a thinly disguised memoir. I worked for a vampire. The work was really hard. Vampires, they are a lot of work. I don't know if you've realized that. I mean, and Renfield, for the record, had it easy.
Really? Okay. So now, but the other thing that you do that I think is really, really cool is not just writing, but you also teach writers how to market their book. Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yes, there are a lot of people out there who teach marketing on YouTube and have written books about it. I take an unusual approach in that I make a point of co-branding with independent bookstores and indie bookstore owners, like The Spine, Lindsay at The Spine Bookshop here in Smyrna, Tennessee.
Woo!
I make a point of this, and how do I do this? Well, I approach them usually with a review from the Chicago Writers Association, their Windy City Reviews, which I consider to be an excellent
We
source of
love
reviews.
them.
And they're free, Windy City Reviews, by the way. So usually I'll pitch with an email that includes a link to that review.
Excuse me.
And I use that same review link when I'm contacting anybody about my book. So it's a book festival organizer, could be local and regional media, podcast hosts, whatever. And so that becomes my calling card. And once I have that review, it makes it a lot easier to get into an independent bookstore. Because you don't want to take all of your Amazon reviews and come up to someone like Lindsay and say, look at all these reviews on Amazon I've got. I've got thousands of them. Does that impress you? Would it?
No.
So the point is, if you want to have...
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
It wouldn't. Not that Amazon reviews are not impressive. So let me have a non-knee-jerk reaction to that question.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with Amazon reviews, but I think that you can do better. I think that you can get people like me who are just raging nerds and devour books like they are life. They, I think, write better reviews because they'll talk about, oh my God, I love this character, and oh my God, this scene was so great, and oh my God, this was so awesome, as opposed to, it was a great book, I really like the cover, which is, I think, what a lot of Amazon reviews tend to be is a pretty book. No, like, this person made me so mad, and I can't stand this character, but this character is so great. I think you can get better reviews than Amazon reviews, is a better answer, I think.
I agree. Now, especially if you are published on Amazon, you're going to need a lot of Amazon reviews. However, there are many independent booksellers out there who will also take stock a book that was published on Amazon. Is that correct, Lindsay?
Oh yeah, I don't care where your book is published. If you have a published book, I'm going to put it on my shelf. And if you're local and you make something, I'm going to find a space for you. We recently just put TikTok authors on my shelf because we do live with the Spine every morning in the shop, and it's basically it's not really interesting. It's just me bumbling around in my shop in the morning talking to authors on TikTok and them going, oh, well, God, please don't kill yourself when something falls off the shelf, which is kind of normal. But a lot of them were talking about how no one will put their books in the shop. And I was like, what do you mean no one's going to put your book? You haven't asked me. And so I literally spent one day rearranging my entire shop and bringing in egg crate, like the plastic egg cartons, and zip tying them together. I was like, okay, now I have vendor shelves. Now I have space for TikTok authors. Here you go, send me your books. So, I mean, you'll get an author you'll get a bookshop like me who will go, I will make it happen for you.
And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but
No.
wanted to just add one little thing. A big part of the co-branding with indie bookstores is getting photos of smiling booksellers holding your book, giving a thumbs up, and then sharing the heck out of those photos across the universe on
Yes.
all, every social media platform that you are a part of. And Lindsay, how many times have I asked you for a photo of you holding one of my books?
At least 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And how many times have I absolutely done that for you?
I've got 4, maybe 4 from you. So she's holding either DIY book promo or my vampire novel, Fiona's Guardians, and I share them regularly.
Yes.
And I'm going to get one more from you later before I leave today.
Okay. Yeah, and I think like Reagan does bits and bobbles as well. And so I think when you start becoming friends with authors like you and authors like you, and you find different ways to help promote things, you'll find someone like me, and I'm not trying to brag on me, but I feel like if I'm going to invite you into my shop, I'm going to bend over backwards to make sure that you have visibility and that someone knows about your stuff.
Thank you.
I mean, I love you guys, and as my husband says, welcome to the island of misfit toys. You're all on the island, and I love you all desperately. So what is it about reading and writing that you love the most, Reagan?
I already talked a little bit about why I love reading. Why I love writing. I wrote my first book in probably the most unhappiest moment of my life. And I was very lost. Was in an unhappy situation. And writing my book really helped me find myself again. And it gave me a sense of worth and independence. And it was something that I was doing for myself almost out of spite during time in my life where nothing was for me.
Spite is a great motivator.
So it was taking back my autonomy.
Sure.
Page by page. I found a really great writing group online. We were all, Briggs mentioned it earlier, we were all in a street team for another indie author, and we were all interested in writing. So that also gave me a community when I had been so isolated.
Sure.
And so writing made me who I am right now,
Okay.
which is who I really am.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I applaud. Here, the question is, remind me about the question exactly.
What is it about reading and writing that you love so much?
Okay. I do see them in my own head. They're separate activities and there's separate kind of mentalities that go along with that. I'm allowing myself to receive someone else's words when I'm reading, and hopefully the words are the way I would write them and the way I would enjoy a story, like that. So I don't have to be so critical of it. But when I get to the writing, it's not fun. For me, it's a struggle, especially if I'm writing fiction, which
Sure.
That's a deep dive for me. If I'm writing an article or an essay or a nonfiction book like DIY book promo, that's a lot easier for me to click. But to be honest with you, I'm more satisfied with the results when I come up with a really worthy piece of fiction.
Okay.
Do one more.
Yeah.
I think the big difference for me between reading and writing is reading is an escape.
Sure.
And writing is almost the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
One is letting you travel and experience things that you wouldn't otherwise, and the other is experiencing and sharing things that
Okay.
maybe other people haven't.
Okay.
Even if you're writing some epic fantasy based in a world where that doesn't mimic ours in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
you're still giving a certain amount of truth of yourself,
Sure.
where reading is reading somebody else's truths.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I think reading for me, like I'm going to answer my own question. Reading for me, I know I have undiagnosed ADHD. I'm fairly certain that that's a thing for me because my brain goes 90 miles an hour all the time. And reading for me allows my brain to shut up and just be quiet, which I think is really hard for a lot of people that have ADHD or just or constant doer. Allowing your brain to be calm is very difficult, or at least it is for me. And so as I have just written my first book,
Oh, congratulations.
yes, it's it's freaking me out a little bit because I gave it to my beta readers and my alpha reader is sitting out there and would randomly just let me read to her. And I had places where I was like, okay, I'm trying to be funny in this part, or I want you to have a reaction. And so when she would have the reaction I was shooting for, it made me so happy. And then if she didn't have the reaction I was shooting for, it made me wonder, okay, what about that isn't working? But then it was really cool because I also had people like Bella Brandon who I said, hey, can I send you this scene? I've never written anything like that before. So I kind of get what you mean by reading is very relaxing. It allows you to escape, whereas writing is like, what in the hell am I doing? So do you guys have any rituals or like things that you do when you finish a book to like celebrate that you finished it?
No. When I finish a book, when I'm finishing a book, I usually take that week to just kind of honestly jump headfirst into editing, which is the most despised aspect of writing that has ever existed in the history of creativity. For me, some people love it. I am not.
So you're not like getting in your Mustang and like driving and crashing in the forest and being kidnapped by a crazy person.
No, I am not. Because once I'm on that roll, I do have ADHD as well. For me, the momentum is really important to stay on top of that wave.
Sure.
So if I allow myself to let me celebrate this week or take this week off or something, then that week becomes 2 weeks, becomes 3 weeks,
sure,
becomes this book that's in a very rough draft form that will never get published.
Sure.
Once I publish the book, then I take a couple days to, obsessively check my numbers on KDP and eagerly await more and more reviews.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
Things to look forward to.
I can be very ritualized with my actual writing though.
Okay.
Because
how so?
So I do have ADD. I find I need quiet. So headphones. I get distracted easily, so I put a hood up so I don't see anything except for my screen. It's like a horse with blinders on.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is silly. I've written with a scarf over my head. Which again,
it's not the weirdest thing.
I like music, but like other people have mentioned, lyrics during music can be very complicated. I like listening to playlists on YouTube that are actually music playing from another room. I find it, especially if they're oldies, because they're they're songs that are so familiar you don't have to listen anymore, and they're playing distantly, so you get the ambiance without you're not drawn into that.
So that's so weird that you guys have talked about music without lyrics because that has driven me crazy. And I have had to find songs that I can listen to that have lyrics because my brain is like, over here we're going to sing the Sleep Token song, but over here we're going to write this over here. And if I just have not lyrics, then my brain is like, what is that song? What movie is that song from? Oh, I really like that song. I need to find out who did that song. And I wonder how long this, and then I can't write because I'm too busy focused on the song. What about you? What are some of your rituals?
I need total silence.
Really?
Even if it's lyric-less music, I will still follow, my mind will follow the music.
Okay.
And so I have to be alone in a silent room, preferably shades drawn, darkened, and then I will be able to create.
I would go insane.
Well, insanity is part of the process.
No, yeah, like the silence alone. The silence alone would just, I would be able to hear the clock ticking and like my breathe, and it would make it impossible for me. I have to have noise.
Yeah. Well, everybody's different.
So that's really interesting that you have to have silence and that you have to have music from another room. Like, it's so interesting to me that everybody has their own process.
We also need snacks.
Oh, you gotta have snacks.
Lots
Okay,
of
that's
snacks.
a great question.
2 drinks, 2 snacks.
What's your favorite? Give me what your favorite snacks are.
Well, one of my favorites are Takis. I don't know why.
I
They're
love
delicious.
Takis.
They're crunchy, but
Sure.
they get on your fingers, and then you have to wipe them off a lot. So having crumb-free or residue-free snacks are good.
And
I reward myself with chocolates, so I keep dark chocolate in my desk, and I'm only allowed to eat my dark chocolate when I'm writing.
sure.
And I'm like a 3-drink person. Like I'll have my water, I'll have my coffee, I'll have my tea,
Sure.
or juice, or something. And then I'll alternate drinking. I don't know. It's it's a thing. I'll like not allow my like I'll need a snack to write, so I'll rummage through my pantry until I find something that's doable, and then
Sure.
go sit down.
Yeah. Now, I typically don't eat while I write, and therefore, when I emerge from my crypt, or where in my office, downstairs, I am ravenous.
For 30
Yeah,
years.
I am ravenously hungry. So for me, it's I always have coffee in the morning and water. Those are the two things I alternate between, and then in the afternoon, if I'm doing some afternoon writing, I might get a sparkling water or something with just a little fizz to keep it interesting.
Spicy water.
But yeah, and I'm just leaning in to the laptop and just trying to finish the damn chapter.
Yeah.
I've discovered in writing my first book that I turn into a 12-year-old boy because I'll be sucking down root beer and double stuffed Oreo cookies and sweet potato chips, and did not realize that was and then my 12-year-old writer self is like, "So's your mom," as I'm sucking down a bag of chips. So, what do you love as writers to hear from people who have read your books? Like, what is the one thing that you love to hear from other writers? Dan, I'm going to let you go first this time.
I think, first of all, I love to hear that. I love to hear when people finish the book. That's a good start, right?
Yeah.
I got all the way to the front to back. Okay, that's encouraging. And also that they said, if they start talking about the characters, even if they don't like the characters, if they're talking about the characters, that means my characters got under their skin. And I feel like that's I've succeeded in some way.
Yeah.
There are several things. I think one of my favorite things is getting a letter, like an email from a fan. That's always been just so it feels so good,
Yeah.
to touch somebody so much that they take the time to send a note. In reviews and everything, hearing things like "I felt like I was there," or "This should be a movie," or "This really represented my experience." And when you're writing a fantasy book and you have somebody who I really felt seen. That's actually really cool because you're not this elemental magic person who's only half human.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's about people. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that because I wish I could talk to John Green because I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and you're trying, as someone who has that mental illness, and you try to describe your brain, which is doing all this crazy shit, and trying to describe it to someone who is not crazy, and you don't have the words, and then you read something like Turtles All the Way Down, where the character in the very first chapter describes their thought spirals, and I remember reading that going, "Oh my God!" And I interrupted my husband watching a football game, and I said, "You have to read this right now." "Well, I'm watching football." "I don't care. Read it right now. And this is what my brain," and I would love to thank John Green because he was as like, "Oh my God, someone else has a brain that's doing crazy crap and telling them that stuff is going to happen that's not going to happen." And so I love that you mentioned that you have someone, you've got this story. So moving on, what are you working on now? Like, what's your next novel? Because I want to know what you're working on now.
Okay. Well, I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, but I'm 50,000 words into the sequel to my vampire novel, Fiona's Guardians, and I anticipate getting to about 60, 65,000. So I feel like I'm entering the home stretch.
Okay.
Maybe if I finish it by May, my publisher could get it out by October.
Okay.
I'm actually working on a fae romantasy, which I'm very excited about.
Yay.
And the first book should be out sometime this summer.
Okay.
am aiming for June, which in Reagan time really means July. And I'm really hoping for the second one to be out before the end of the year. So.
Okay. So do you guys have, like when you're reading a book, do you guys ever have that moment where you're thunderstruck by something? Is there a book recently that you guys have read that the minute you've read it or like it has a line or something like that, like, and the reason I'm asking is so like Andy Kopic, who is one of our poets in the office, or not in the office, in the shop. So he has a poetry book, and one of his poems, and I can never remember what it was, and I'm really sorry, Andy, I apologize profusely. But the first line of one of his poems is, I'm a victim of my own mind. And I remember when I read that, it put me on my ass for about an hour as I just thought about that. Like, I didn't even finish the poem. I just kind of sat there. I was like, that is the most brilliantly written line I've ever heard. So have you guys ever, like, recently read anything that when you've read it, it was just like, I gotta sit and, like, rechange my DNA because I've read this amazing thing?
I don't know that I've read something recently where there was a single line that really spoke to me. There are series that speaks to me.
Like what?
Right now, I'm rereading for probably for the fourth time I'm listening to it is Dungeon Crawler Carl series,
Okay.
which is a lit RPG, and it's very funny and very silly, but it's also about this man traversing the apocalypse.
Okay.
And creating this resistance and going against these off-world governments that are absolutely against everything that every person on Earth is.
Okay.
So
Sounds timely.
it's a great story. It's a great series. The main character, it's him and his cat. And she becomes sentient in the first book, and she's my favorite character probably of all time. Like Princess Donut that's her name.
Wait, the cat's name is Princess
Donut.
Donut?
The Queen Anne chunk, best in show. Yeah.
Yes.
That is her.
Yeah.
I love writers so much.
So it is brilliant. It is hilarious. They're hefty books, and reading that book and seeing the humor and seeing the little things that are in there. It's just I want to live in this person's brain for a minute because it's so clever.
Yeah,
I think humor, when you're writing something that the world building is so involved,
Mhm.
and having something that's so smart and funny and ends up talking about real topics in such a way that you're
Yeah.
still laughing out loud while this AI system has a weird foot fetish. Like it's funny, but it's also realistic in
Yeah.
the most bizarre way. So
Julie and Julia, which was a movie, it had Meryl Streep and I can't think of what the other girl's name.
Amy Adams.
Amy Adams, thank you. So I read the book and there was a line, and you would have had to have seen Silence of the Lambs for this to be funny. But there's a line where she's cooking like calf, like cartilage or something. She's trying to get the meat out of the bone. And so it's a bloody mess. And so she walks into her husband with blood all on her apron. And she's like, it puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. And I remember reading that and laughing till I cried. But it was one of those you would only laugh if you had another reference. What about you? Anything that you've read that's profoundly hit you lately?
Yes. Now, at the risk of seeming a little too on brand, because I'm the co-host of Vamp Chat with Dan and Eva.
We're going to get to that, too.
And so I read a lot of vampire books that come in. And the most profound book I've read that came out within the last couple of years is The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Every line on every page, from the very beginning until the very end of a considerably sized book, is profound.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. It is an exceptional piece of work, a truly literary book.
Do you have a favorite author?
I don't really. I think that I don't stick with an author just and read their entire catalog or whatever. I will just bounce around from author to author, depending on who I, whatever work or title that attracts me. Could be the cover art.
I will say I do have a favorite author. I love Sarah Addison Allen and Carrie Jones, and I literally own every single book that they have ever even so much as touched. And I've actually become very good friends with Carrie Jones, but if I ever met Sarah Addison Allen, I'd probably just puke because I will pre-order her book. I don't even care what it's about. It could be a phone book. I'll pre-order it because she's just one of those authors that, for me, don't care. I want it on my shelf every time. What about you?
I have a few go-to authors, but I have not read anybody's entire catalog. When I was younger, I was very.
God, I'm such a dork.
When I was younger, I did do that. I'd find an author, I'd read everything that they ever wrote. As I've gotten older, I don't quite do that. I do have some of it. I'm waiting for. Like, I know that this little 3-book series is going to be great because it's by an author that I love, and I want to make sure that I have something in my back pocket that I can read if you're in a reading slump. So it's not always because I don't want to, I don't have interest, but I kind of like to save things.
Sure.
Right now, I would probably say, if I had to pick a top 5 list, I would have Will White, Matt Dinneman, Ann Bishop, Anne Rice, and and I don't even know for number 5. Like, I have a list of go-tos, but
Sure.
yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody that wants to ask a question? Anybody from TikTok? Nope. Okay. So you write vampire books, and you like Anne Rice, which writes it. Okay. So I want to know, and you and I have had this conversation. You and I had a very long conversation about this. What is your favorite? I want to know. It's a 2-part question. What is your favorite genre? And then for you, I want to know what your favorite vampire is.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we actually asked this during the podcast,
We did.
too. Yeah. Are you Team Louis? Are you Team Lestat? That kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm Team Armand.
Oh, that's good. We should include that.
Yeah, Antonio Banderas is hot.
That's please.
I love them all.
Man,
Fine.
come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
That's
All
okay.
right.
I'll take Armand. That man is fine.
I guess I'm Team Louis. I feel like vampires should have a moral, kind of at least think about their food before toying with it and eating it. I don't know.
Of that. Okay, so I was first introduced to Anne Rice by my aunt, and I was 12. So I started reading. So I read Interview with the Vampire when I was 12 years old. It was the same year, coincidentally, that I read Harry Potter.
Interesting.
Fantastic.
So, and at that time, Louis was the world to me. That was my first book boyfriend, my first crush, my first.
God.
It was the first book where I realized how beautiful words could be. Anne Rice does an amazing job. If you ever read, her sister wrote books too. Her name was Alice Borchardt, and I actually absolutely love her books as well. She does wolf shifters.
Oh, look for those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're wonderful. Anyway, it's just her storytelling is magnificent. Rereading the series multiple times. So I first loved Louis. When I was an older teen, I was really drawn to Lestat and his brashness and his insatiable love for life. Now, at one point it was Gabrielle, like his mother. I loved her. I loved the struggle that she had in her mortal life. So each time I read, there's a different character that I'm drawn to. There's one period in time where Akasha was right. We don't talk about those days. So right now I would probably be David is probably my favorite, but those were later books. But I am very drawn to the idea of the Talamasca in general. Like, I love the concept. I love the idea of watching and recording. So I named my first daughter Rowan after Major Witches.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah.
So I'm gonna say Lestat is an a-hole. Everybody
But
hates
Armand,
Lestat.
is it?
Oh, Armand was hot.
He was a teenager.
I don't care.
We're surely getting something on TikTok now about this, right?
Armand.
No?
So I watched the movie before I read the book, and when Antonio
That's where you
Banderas
go
walked
wrong.
out with that dark hair and that dark look,
Yeah, but Antonio
Jesus.
Banderas was in his 20s. Armand was not. He was, 17 or
I don't
something when he
care.
was turned?
Yeah.
So,
I don't care.
I have moral
Antonio
objections.
Banderas, I watched him in Desperado and then watched him in Interview with the Vampire, and that I don't care. He could be 90. I don't care.
But that's not Armand. That's Antonio Banderas.
Well, when I was that young, I did not care. I still don't. I'm 47. I don't care. His name is Armand,
Yes. Right.
and that is what he will always be.
Okay.
Like, But yes, you have a question.
I have a question from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
So I've been online on Facebook, and there are a couple of groups that offer things like book retreats, where a group will get together for a weekend or something.
We're working on doing that with the spine.
Thank you. That was what I was going to ask.
No, yeah. So Clarence Plank, who is one of our poets, he and I are going to partner on that, and we're in the beginning process. Clarence.
Yay! Okay.
Yeah, we have. We're trying tentatively to do that for September. So we're in the beginning stages of figuring out how we're going to do that. Danny, you had a question?
It kind of goes with the what's your favorite type of vampire? Are y'all more like the sexy hot vampire or more of the monstrous vampire?
I think that's really good because it goes into what Dan and I had talked about before. So my very first vampire was Chris Sarandon from Fright Night.
Great movie.
And I remember thinking that I would tap a vein and just let him just have at it. Like, just absolutely. And I mean, yes, I love Colin Firth and the remake, but Chris Sarandon all day. Like, all day. And I remember you and I talked about that was my very first vampire movie. And watching that, being like, 15, I'm not really sure what I want to do with that, but I want one.
Yeah, I love I love to play with both the pretty vampires and the sexy ones, and also the really ugly
Sparkly
monstrous
ones?
Not so much
We don't
sparkly.
talk about
You know, and I don't want to take
No sparkles.
I don't want to take away anything from Stephanie Meyer, the creator of
I
Twilight.
love the sparkles because it shuts your brain down. I know it's
Yeah.
crap.
I
Don't
have-
care.
And that's fine. And if she
writes a compelling
earned
story.
every dollar
She
that she
does.
made, and I'm not going to disparage that at all. Success,
I'll disparage it.
great.
Oh, I mean,
But, yeah, I like the Nosferatu characters as well, but the sexy female vampires in particular are the ones that I find intriguing. I
Sure.
suppose. Yeah.
what about you?
What was the question again?
Wait.
Wait, do I like sexy or scary?
Yeah.
I think that vampires are both. Like,
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
and I think that that's one of the things that is so compelling about them and why they are, the never-ending trope. Like there always has been and always will be vampire books that do very well, and that's for a reason. There's something very attractive about, beautiful death. Like, I guess, yeah. So.
Okay, go
I have
ahead.
a question on the vampire thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Has anybody on the panel actually done any live action role playing as Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire, any of that stuff?
I'm going to
You're
say
missing out
no.
if you haven't.
We're just going to say no for that. The answer is going to be no.
That was me. Yes, that's why I know.
No, okay, right. No, but so that actually is what you said. It leads me to another question. So, spicy books is how we're going to, so that TikTok doesn't flag me and ban me again. Again, on both personal and professional accounts. So spicy books have really hit a surge, especially considering the morally gray bad guy who will burn the world to the ground because you looked at somebody wrong. Like, I'm super into that right now. I don't want the nice guy. I want the guy who's going to stab you in the face because you looked at me wrong and wouldn't let me out of the elevator first. Like, why do you guys think that has taken such a big rise in readership lately?
I'm going to give this to you first.
Well, I think that there is a certain amount. Let's preface, like, what we like on the page is not what we like in real life.
Is it though?
I mean, it absolutely is. There is no way in hell that I would tolerate a man who does half the things that I like my male leads to do in a book.
It's a 50-50
it is-
shot.
It is a safe way to explore ideas
Okay.
without endangering ourselves, or like it is,
Sure.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, no, if my husband thought that I couldn't handle myself when somebody walked out the elevator first, and he took that upon like I can handle that rude person. You don't need to do that for me. But I love it in a book. Like absolutely kill that guy.
Yeah, do it.
I do it.
Yeah.
Like I'll got a knife. Like yeah.
No, I think that's fair because my husband knows that, he'll let me handle stuff. But I think that there's a certain bit of chivalry that I still believe in chivalry, and I think it goes both ways, women or men, where you're like, no, I'm gonna take this on for you because now I'm pissed off,
Yeah.
And I think that applies for friends as well.
Okay.
That like if you see someone mistreating your friend or you see somebody that's handling something, first of all, what we're not gonna do, but the morally, in a book, do it. Just eviscerate it. But I can kind of see how that might be problematic in real life.
It's walking red flags.
Yeah, pretty much everything you said, Reagan.
Walking red flags, yes.
Right, but I can't handle myself in a fight, so I'm not going
I
to be a
got you.
chivalrous guy.
I got you. I'm
Thank
scrappy.
You. Thank you. I'm depending on you.
I got you. I got a taser and a baseball bat. I will lay down the law. I have no problem with this.
Thank you for protecting me.
Hey man,
I do think that there is a big difference between chivalry and violence.
Sure.
So when we're attracted to these morally great characters and everything, that's why I don't want that in my real life partner, because I think that there is something, while our maybe lizard part of our brain likes certain things, like
Sure.
big strong, like club woman.
Yeah.
We evolved from that. So
Yeah.
Yes?
I don't want to be clubbed.
I don't know. I feel it. So, okay, I love that you bring up violence too, because there's always that discussion of, is that person a violent person, or are they a very calm person who's had enough of your bullshit and is being driven to violence?
Are we talking about characters, or what are we talking
No,
about?
in characters. So you have a character that has, been put upon and put upon and put upon and has dealt with everybody's crap, and they just finally get so sick of everybody's crap that they have a very explosive, violent reaction.
Yeah.
So now the debate is that character a violent character, or is it a character who has been driven to violence?
Right. So, and the writer, here's where the writer could be very skillful and show their skill by showing this character being humiliated or abused, or just building. The anger is building and building over time. A skilled writer will get you from A to the explosion over here with lots of measurable steps. And so by the time that happens, that explosion, the reader will understand and will empathize with the person who's just suddenly goes, that's it, I can't take it anymore. Here's some of what you've been dishing out.
I can agree with that. Like a skilled writer will make you empathize with the villain. That's why so many, like I myself am the person who always ends up rooting for the bad part of the love triangle. That's why I don't do love triangles anymore, because I always want the one that doesn't get chosen, because he's always a little
the underdog.
He's always a little evil. So
Yeah.
But that's, again, that's fantasy. Even if it's not a fantasy genre, rooting for the villain just because he has great reasons or she has great reasons in a book does not justify real life action.
Oh, no, sure.
Yeah, no, but I think that most characters in certain genres have that potential for violence, just like all humans have that potential for violence.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really fascinating aspect of character
Development.
Yeah.
No, I agree too with character development, and I've said this on multiple times. When you're reading a book and you have a character you absolutely despise, like Game of Thrones with Cersei. At the beginning of that show, I hated her so much and plotted her death, but by the end of the show, I was just like, yeah, get it, And I really think that's really cool when you have, like you said, a character that maybe not be the best character, but then by the end of the novel or the story, you're just totally on their side because what they've done or whatever. And I really love a character arc where you start out either loving a character and by the end of it you hate him, or like you absolutely despise them, but by the time you get to the end of the book, you're championing their success. What do you guys think about that?
Right. So you mentioned arc, and you two, and I too did not like Cersei at the beginning, but by the end, yes, I was thinking, okay,
Get
this is
it.
I get her now.
Yeah.
I get her now. And so again, a really skilled writer who took
She got tired of
several
everybody's
books
crap.
and several seasons of the show writers as well, building up to this moment. So there's a lot of thought that they had to put in ahead of time
Sure.
when you're designing that character and creating that character. At some point, you want to give them, make them the one that everybody cheers on.
Okay.
So I actually also hated Cersei at the beginning, but I also hated her at the end
Really?
and celebrated her death.
Really?
Because just because we have a history does not justify us becoming the bully in other people's stories.
No, that's fair.
So while there were understood like, oh wow, I see how she got this way, that doesn't justify her actions once she got there. So for me, when I see a character towards the beginning of a story that I really don't like, I do like seeing how they got there. I also really love seeing a redemption arc on where they have maybe started off as a villain because of their history, because of these things, these terrible things that have happened. But then once they're there, they are challenged, and they challenge their belief system is challenged, and then they change into something that is a little bit better.
Sure.
Those are the stories that I really like. It's not a let's root for the villain, but I like seeing the villain be redeemed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
I feel like a sociopath now because I'm constantly rooting for the villain. All right, last question because we're almost out of time. Has there ever been a character in a book that's had their demise, and it's been one that, like, when you read about it, you're just like, yes, finally, thank God they fight, like Joffrey, Game of Thrones. I have never stood up and cheered for a character's death so much in my entire life and like ran around the house screaming for joy when he finally bit it. Is there ever been a character death for you that when it finally happened, you were overjoyed that character finally got what they had coming to them?
I can't think of one offhand. I guess I don't really celebrate that kind of demise.
God, I really am a sociopath.
Now, there are a lot of people here who have their favorite villains that they would love to see, be vanquished and perish.
Sure.
But yeah, I can't think of one offhand.
Okay, what about you?
You mean other than Cersei?
Other than Cersei.
No, I have, not that I can think of actually.
God, something is wrong with me.
Or something's very right with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, so see, Lindsay's the same way.
There are definitely, like, when you see the villain
Zoe?
get their comeuppance. Like,
Yeah.
I do like that, but the stories that touch me the most are not the stories where the villain dies. And so while I might enjoy that in the story, those aren't the ones that stay with me.
Sure.
Usually the ones that I find the most emotionally is when the character dies.
Yeah.
Or, like one of the good characters, one of the side characters, or like other things. It's not that
Sure.
I don't celebrate those moments. It's just that those aren't the ones that stay with me. Those aren't the books that
Gotcha.
I'm most drawn to.
Wait, you're more Lestat than you realize.
Oh, God. Don't say that. Shame. I mean, okay, so thank you guys both for being on the bookcast. Clearly, I need some very extensive therapy for my apparently morally gray compulsion. We'll talk about that later. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Spine Bookcast. We really appreciate the live. Please don't come for me for not liking anyone but Armand. Just let me just have it.
Come at her.
Don't come at. You won't like it if you come at me. I promise. Because remember, I'm a sociopath apparently. So thank you guys very much for listening to the Spine Bookcast, and don't forget to like and follow. And thank you guys so much. And make sure you follow all of these authors because they are absolutely brilliant. Thank you guys, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Yay!
Yeah, you guys are great. Thanks for
God, I really
listening.
do have a problem, don't I?